Good evening, this is Nick Inman from VolumeProfileTrader.com on Tuesday, January 17th, and this is just going to be the S&P, the NASDAQ, and the Dow. And where I'm getting at is I think we have to look at taking some profits in this market, and the reason why is because we are at a point, well, for example, the NASDAQ. And I'm just going to show the chart. The NASDAQ 100, it's not necessarily show. Alright, we are at the value area high for the year. And every time it's gotten to this level, has it been right to be a seller or a buyer? And it's pretty clear the answer is to be a seller. Is this time any different? I really doubt it, just because, we've had a nice run off of the December point of control. And I still think that this is something that you want to look at to be long, but if you look at NASDAQ stocks, I think it's time for them to come in a bit. If you look at the S&P, in my opinion, today, it was a failure. We closed lower than we have the last 3 or 4 sessions, and maybe it's time for a little downside pressure on the market. And if that's the case, then you want to go ahead and ring the register on some of your positions. I would look at technology as the first place to ring the register. Take half off, whatever it may be, because it looks like there's a possibility for a pullback. The Dow close to its value area high, but you can see definitely at the top end of its range. If it pulls back almost 200 points, it's not even a big deal, and it's just back really to these recent lows that we've seen for the last 2 weeks. So that's something to be aware of. So now that we have that idea, let's go into what's going on a 30-day chart and get a real idea for what we're looking at. The trend is definitely still higher, but we didn't even test the Globex high today at 1302. When the market opened, it basically traded lower, and we bounced for a little bit and got slammed since. So we are close to support. We did bounce off of last week's high volume area, and that's good news. But the key is, will this 1285 level, or these lows, generally speaking, will they hold? You can see it was last week's point of control, so there is that potential. If we do, then remember that this trend line's been hit every time, and it's been right to be a seller at that trend line. We would have to push back up towards the top of this trend line, and the next target's going to be around 1305, 1306 if it were to happen in the next couple of days. If it happens in the next week, probably more towards 310, 309-ish. So just be aware of that. And as long as this channel holds, then we're okay. As long as we hold this, general point of control level, we're okay. But if we do break this trend line, we should go test 1273, and then it becomes more of a range-bound market between 1295-ish, or basically these swing highs, the value area high for the last month or 30 days, and 1274, and it will probably build some volume between 1285, 1278 or so in that process. But it then goes from an uptrend to consolidation or sideways movement, and that leads for more possible downside. So it's just something to be aware of and to recognize, so you're not basically holding an empty bag of cards. The NASDAQ's definitely performing much stronger, but we're going to look for that rollover. If we start breaking lower, we should go test 2370, so that's about 1% to the downside. I'm not sure. That could happen in one session. It could rebound in the afternoon, so it's just something to be aware of. The Dow, it's definitely been consolidating more sideways than the S&P or really the NASDAQ. but you could see this. Is this some type of rejection? We should be getting some type of bounce off these levels. If we don't, and we continue lower, like tomorrow morning, think about the move that's happened from 12,500 to 12,350, call it. So, a decent move to the downside for an environment right now that's pretty low in terms of price movement, volatility. So that's a pretty significant move, but we're just going to have to wait and see. The VIX, I think this is worth noting. We basically made a low around 2050, and today up 6%. That's a pretty big move. This thing could easily come up and test 23, 24, maybe up to 25 on the VIX. So that's just something to be aware of. While we're at it, we can look at some other names. Oil, bouncing off the value area low from last week, a continuation higher. We are at some resistance. We're at last week's point of control level. This thing could push up towards 103 again. I wouldn't be surprised. But just recognize that the buying opportunity was really down at the value area low, and this continuation is just, enjoy the ride. If you want to get long at these levels, you can. Just realize that your ceilings, you're basically in the middle of the range, and you just expect, more upside with no pullback, because you want to buy here, and this end up being a lower high, and we roll back over towards 98. So gold, it's taking a breather. It kind of looks like the S&P. I think you just want to keep an eye on this. The uptrend, this current uptrend, remains intact, but we could see some more downside. You want to look at last week's point of control. Call it 1640, $7 lower from current prices. That's probably where you're going to look for support. Your target would be up towards 1660, point of control for the week so far. And if we break this trend line, then expect to go and test 1620, where there may be a buying opportunity in the cards. So silver kind of looks like gold. I wonder why. This looks like it has more downside, and if silver is any prerequisite to gold, then we're going to go test 29 on silver. I guess we can look at a few names I got involved with today. Amazon, it's a neutral position. I sold some put spreads that I'm planning to basically take off for a scalp, hopefully in the next day or so. They expire this week, but I think Amazon is in a bottoming formation, and it doesn't look as good on this chart as it does on the daily. I like this value area low, and it didn't make a new 52-week low, so we're going to battle with this probably 175 to 195 area, and see if Amazon can build a base and push back up towards the highs. I wouldn't be surprised if it does. However, we are in a downtrend. I'm just taking a short-term trade. So Apple definitely working, but if it's, we got the NASDAQ, and that's just something to be aware of. Walgreens, keep an eye on this. We had a nice bounce today, up almost 2% on a market that was pretty weak. Celgene, this looks like a topping powder, but it's on very low volume. We gapped up 73.55-ish, 73.50, traded up nearly $1.50, and traded lower relative to where we opened today. We're definitely still making higher lows, but and you watch, it's on low volume relative to these breakout days, but expect some type of pullback. That's just, I'm not saying to flatten out, but just realize where you are. Polaris continues to work. I hope you're long these names. They've been pretty nice winners. Las Vegas Sands. It's tough to say I'm expecting a breakout since it's been in a range for so long, but I'm expecting a breakout, and I want to see this thing go up and test $50. I'll probably take some profits there. Hopefully it can, maybe $48, and kind of look for a higher low off this point of control. So that's what we're looking at on Las Vegas Sands. I think it is something that you want to stay a part of. Terra Nitrogen, this is the last one. This thing's going higher. Look at the volume the last few days. We got involved in this around 160, and since then, it's been a nice trade. Enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. It also pays a 15% dividend or so. Probably, I think it's a little less right now, but it's the whole industry. Potash up, Monsanto. We were all over this, $70, and that's why we were getting involved. It pays to understand the market. Agrium not as strong, and CF Industries not as strong. But so anyways, stay long this market. Be aware that there are pockets of strength, but we are at the top end of the range. I think we see a little more of a pullback, and if we don't, then stay involved. If we do, let your stops take you out, whether it's intraday lows, whether it's a psychological number, say $100 on Amazon. If it gets below $100, I'll sell. Something like that, just to ensure your discipline, because markets, they go up, they go down, they trade sideways. What have we done lately? We've gone up, we've traded sideways, we've gone up. So what do you kind of expect? Probably some type of consolidation, to say the least, which is usually involves, some type of range is established, and it's probably around towards $96 or so on Caterpillar, for example. So anyways, I hope this helped. Sorry it's out a little late. Hopefully, I think this is still going to be a video worth watching even in the morning. So have a good night.